on the way home radio. What's good, Maniacs? It's your boy Manny. Call me Manny.com. This podcast is one of the many ways that I'm trying to stay in touch with you. If you consider yourself to be a fan of my music, you should go to callmemanny.com/get updates to learn more. Welcome to episode 7 of On the Way Home Radio, where I have the opportunity of just kind of telling you my thoughts as an independent artist, talking directly to you and just kind of giving you some insight. Today, I think what I have scheduled to talk about for today is supporting your favorite artist. What does it mean? How do you actually support your favorite artist? What does it look like? Because I do feel like there's some interesting insight there when I have conversations with some people about like how do you actually support somebody, right? Whether it's your friend, whether it's a small business that, you know, a friend of yours that's starting a business, obviously whether or not it's an artist, just in general, like what is support, right? And I think that's a good topic of conversation that I just wanted to cover. So, you know, one of the things I normally do when I start my podcast is I give you guys a little bit of an update in terms of my viewership. So, by the way, I'm only giving you my viewership on those that are listening to the podcast on a podcast streaming platform such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Overcast, Anchor. If you're listening to this podcast on YouTube, then that's another demographic piece that I'm not really, I'm not looking at right now. Not that I'm not focused on, but I'm not looking at right now. So one of the things that I think is interesting as far as the podcast is concerned, I recently got, I guess, some exposure into different markets. So I remember when I first saw this on my YouTube data, I was like, I don't even understand this. Like, how is it real? And but so apparently outside of the United States, I have had a listener in India and another in Singapore. So not sure how that happens. Not sure if it's just somebody out there or somebody visiting, or if somebody on a VPN. I really don't know how that stuff works. So, but obviously, you know, somebody listening to this podcast from India just seems a little far-fetched to me. But I guess not impossible, but just seems far-fetched. Got a stronger male listener base right now than female as far as the podcast is concerned. I imagine that's just the algorithm for these podcast streaming platforms recommending my podcast to new listeners, and I guess just trying to have an idea of like who actually listens, right? So I'm assuming they take listen time. I know YouTube looks at watch time. I'm probably talking a lot of nonsense about like algorithms and everything, but I know that they're trying to take some information to decide, hey, this individual listener listens to the podcast, you know, 80% of the way through. So let me recommend the podcast to somebody like that person because they're likely to do it again. And the way these algorithms work is that they're just looking for people to stay on their platform. So the longer you stay on the platform, the more watch time or listen time you get, the better it is for the platform because you don't leave, which is what all these social media content providers want. I guess something I've already kind of known, but I did also watch The Social Dilemma recently on Netflix. And so obviously that's a little bit top of mind. Just having a good understanding of how these social media sites work and the addiction that they produce, cause, create, however you want to call it. Not sure if it's just, I guess, us as humans being susceptible to it, or the fact that the machines or the machine learning is just that good that it can literally get us addicted to something, give us that little bit of dopamine. All right, so that's the quick update there. I think pretty interesting that the podcast itself is growing, definitely getting more listeners. And, you know, as far as the United States is still concerned, I'm actually in a new city as well. So before I mentioned I was in Washington, Florida, Texas, Massachusetts, and California. Now I'm also in Oregon. So interesting. Cool. If you're listening from any one of those cities, Shout out to you. Appreciate you. All right, so let's get into today's topic. So today's topic is around basically what does it mean to support your favorite artist or a friend's business, right? So I just kind of equate the two as the same. Like if you're an artist, if you're an independent artist, you're a small business, and your small business just happens to be in the business of selling music. And obviously, selling music works a certain way. Actually, generally, the music kind of gets you so far. You might get lucky with licensing and from your publishing, but for the most part, you're really not going to make a huge living just off the mechanical royalties of your music. You need to kind of have supplemental income. So there's kind of like a secondary sale, which would be merch, and then a tertiary sale, which would be a live performance. So that's an independent artist. But even if it's a small business, there's a lot of different ways as well. So I guess the first most common thing, and the reason why I even brought up this topic or thought about this topic was I was talking to somebody on Facebook who he's a great guy, genuinely feel like he has great intentions, had told me that he's been a supporter of mine for years, like day one supporter. And again, a lot of what I'm going to mention today is not necessarily something that's like, oh, you're not if you didn't do this. I mean, the artist also has to give you the option as well. And so I might have had my music available, but I never really had it available for, digital distribution until 2016. I never really had a merch product line for you to be able to support. And I never had, I actually have not done too many live performances over the course of my career. I did a lot when I was younger that I just did for free. And then had a couple paid events that I did. And then I did a lot more events when I was releasing Prequel. So there's the other aspect that, like, okay, if you're an independent artist, you got to make sure that the products are available. You can't expect to get support if you don't have product availability, which the most important product you can release is music. But so had mentioned that they've been a supporter for a long time. So I said, great. I actually just created a section of my website. It's callmemanny.com/support. You could visit that website right now, callmemanny.com/support. And the entire idea of the website was something that came about in one of my mastermind sessions where we talked about how do I actually give people the opportunity to support. So what would happen is somebody would reach out to me and say, hey, I will support you in any way I know how. And I would say, well, awesome. I'll let you know how later, but it's like, how I got to give them an answer now. How can they support now? Because they're willing to, right? I genuinely have fans that are willing to support. They just don't know what to do, right? How do I support you? How do you want me to help you? And I think that that's an interesting problem for independent artists. By the way, I think one of the things that I want to also kind of speak about to help you give a little bit more context to, I guess, what I'm talking about when it comes to independent artists. T actually had a really good Instagram post where he talked about this, that when you're an independent artist, it's not glamorous, right? People think of an artist and they think like, oh, they just pretty much already made it. They already have like fancy jewelry. They're a fashion icon. They have obviously a large fan base. They created a large influence, and therefore they're successful. Well, when in reality, those artists that you're thinking about, they're generally signed to major labels, and the major labels gave them an advance. Well, what's that advance? That advance is just money up front for the future sale of their music, merch, and in many cases, their live performance revenue as well. So the label is basically saying, here, we're going to front you this money up front, and we'll make that money back off of recouping it from your royalties, on top of the fact that we're going to make whatever 80 to 90% of the actual sales regardless. And then after you do that, that's when you'll get your royalties. So for those artists, well, they already got their money, right? So they're able to kind of splurge however they want. Really and truly, the main customer to them is the label. The more that they can make the label happy, the more they'll be able to get their next advance, which is how they end up paying for everything that they want. Well, when you don't have a label offering you an advance, who's going to front you the money up front? Nobody does that. You'd have to either exhaust the money yourself or ideally be able to build a supportive fan base that's actually supporting you through merch, whether that's through hat sales, merch sales, or of course, seeing you at a live performance. But to expect to make this kind of money from actual streaming, it's like few and far between. So, I mean, just to give you a perception, 1 million streams for the most part will pay you somewhere between $2,000 to $4,000. That's a million streams. That's not easy to get, right? So to get a million streams, you would only make about $2,000 to $4,000. So clearly, if you want to make $20,000, you need to have 20 or 10 million streams, which it's some sort of virality that's it's few and far between that you'll be able to see that kind of massive success. So you need to have some sort of way where you can actually get money up front. You're not going to be able to afford expensive jewelry. I'm saying off of the revenue that you earn from your music business. Whether you're able to afford expensive jewelry aside from your music business, that has everything to do with just the way you manage your own money, separate from the actual organization. So I definitely know some independent artists that they flaunt a lot of things that they have, but just being in the business, I know they're not getting that because of what they're doing with music. I actually view their music production as like a massive expense. I'm sure it's a write-off, but if you're spending $2,000 to $4,000 on a music video, if you're spending a lot of money on jewelry and fashion, clothing, but you have obviously only 10,000 views, for example, on your latest music video, well, that's not, 10 million streams. So you didn't make, $20,000. It's just statistics. It's just facts. And now streaming revenue is one thing. Merch revenue, obviously, you can make more money per sale of each merch item than you can off of a stream. So if you're able to somehow sell a product around your music that people end up buying, this is a really great example of this. Is Chance the Rapper selling his 3 hat, and he mentioned that he made $6 million in 1 year selling that hat. So obviously, you're making $6 million off of the hat. Well, to make $6 million off of your music streams, I mean, you would have to have a ton of streams. Let me see. That's actually 3 to the 9th. Let's see if my calculator can actually do it. If it goes sideways, I don't even think. I think it's 3 billion. 3 9 zeros. Yeah. I mean, it's a ridiculous number in order for you to make $6 million. It's probably not that high. Anyways, so merch is a thing. And then the real way that artists make money, which is obviously completely impacted right now around COVID-19, is through, the actual live performances. So obviously, if you can sell a ticket for, let's just say $100, just to make the math easy, and you're able to get 10 people to attend, well, that's $1,000. And I imagine if you're selling tickets for $100, you could probably get 100 people to attend at a minimum. And so now you're talking about making $10,000 off of the sale of your live performance, that's just off 100 people. So that's where things can start to blow up. So if you really start to get your streams, you're starting to sell some merch along the way, but you can start actually getting live performances. That is how you're able to get the return on your investment in music, through those live performances. So I just want to talk about that for a second, because the way the music industry is designed right now is you don't start local, then go regional, and then go national, then go worldwide. That's how it used to be. So you'd be a local artist. You try to figure out how to get your CDs distributed in a local area. You try to figure out how to do local performances. Maybe you start to grow you're able to bring in 10 people, 10 to 100 people into a venue, and you start to make money off of that. Well, that makes sense. And then, okay, now you're making more money. You use that money to advertise on a regional perspective. Now you have a regional growth. And then you're able to kind of build on more performances in a regional area, do a little bit of a mini tour. Now you're able to make more money. You expand that to a bigger market, and then you grow to the nation. And obviously, then you can expand obviously worldwide. That is how the music business, I feel like, works best. You have to kind of start local. The problem is that when you release music today, it's everywhere online. That sounds like a great thing, but what do I do when I have listeners all the way in Washington State and listeners all the way in Massachusetts and listeners in Dallas, Texas? In order for me to actually do a performance, first of all, I'd have to fly there, and I would have no guarantee that I'd be able to get 10 people at $100, for example, to give me the $1,000 that I would make in revenue, which, by the way, I'm not even talking about expenses other than the flight and hotel. But obviously, it just gets a little bit weird when you have individual fans in a whole bunch of different areas. You'd actually need to get a bulk set of fans in a specific area, which is why I ended up moving to New York one time, because I had a lot of fans in the New York area. So I wanted to see if I was going to be able to capitalize off of performance revenue inside of the New York area. We did make a little bit of money in the process, but obviously not enough for me to kind of maintain my lifestyle and my personal expenses that I had at the time. So it's just a weird overall game. So how can you support? How do you actually support an independent artist that's going through this scenario? The first way is free options, right? So if you go to callmemanny.com/support, it literally gives you 95 ways that you can support, and then 5 ways that you can support paid. So 95 free, 5 paid. Of the 95 free, this is as easy as 1, subscribing to an artist mailing list so you're aware of everything that's going on. That's not revenue for the artist up front. That's literally just kind of a service that an artist or artists and labels provide to listeners so that they can just stay updated, which obviously is important. But ideally, somebody that subscribes to your mailing list ultimately becomes a fan and ends up buying merch or somewhere in the future attending a live performance. So that's how that process works. So you want to kind of make sure that you're growing your mailing list so you can start to also determine, okay, how many fans do I have in this local area? If I visited this local area, did some sort of marketing push for a local performance, would I be able to break even or bring a return on my investment on that local performance? These are the questions you want to start to ask yourself if you're an independent artist. So the first thing you can do is subscribe to the mailing list. You can just stay up to date. Even if you give them one stream gives them a tiny bit of revenue, but there's some opportunity there. So if you just listen to their music, whether it's on YouTube or any other digital distribution platform, they'll make some sort of revenue off of the music if they own the copyright for it. But even if they don't earn revenue from it, it's just great for the algorithm, right? So if you are actually a fan of their music, you like what you're listening to, and you listen through it, then the algorithms that you're listening to it on, whether that's Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, they're going to say, okay, well, somebody of this demographic, right, this 18 to 24-year-old female who lives in the Bronx, New York, loves this song. So let me recommend it to another 18 to 24-year-old female in the Bronx, New York, to see if they like it as well. And then if they do, then they'll start to kind of grow that algorithm-based opportunity, and you can start to kind of grow your music from there. So just listening to their music clearly, number one, it helps. But not just listening like 2 seconds and saying, yeah, I streamed it. No, like actually listening to the song, listening to it over the course of time. Remember, the algorithms care about watch time. Aside from that, the next way that you can help out independent artists is literally by just following their social media accounts. This, again, it's all these machine learning, algorithms that these social media accounts are using. You trigger something on Instagram when you press that follow button on my account, that tells Instagram that somebody like you is interested in this account. Therefore, the next time I post something, they'll try to put that on the explore feed of somebody like you so that they can be exposed to it, because Instagram now believes that, you know, somebody like you would enjoy my content. So just hitting that follow button, even if you don't engage, obviously engaging gives that an extra boost, but just triggering these kind of things will help your independent artists, or even your friends, local businesses, if they have social media accounts. So that would be the second thing. Following all their accounts, whether it's Twitter, whatever account you have, follow them there. It just will trigger something. The third thing would be about kind of just like basic word of mouth. Okay, this could be as simple as posting your friend's music on your Instagram story, or sharing it on your Snapchat, sharing a video of you listening to it on Twitter, maybe just tweeting the lyrics, tweeting something about the song, posting on Facebook the YouTube video, commenting on the YouTube video, some sort of engagement and sharing. Obviously, that is like the go-to way to support an artist that you know, or that you actually enjoy their music. That share is just huge. I actually genuinely feel like one of the reasons why TikTok has blown up the way it has, and the way certain individuals have blown up on TikTok, is because of that share feature. Because something would be so funny or so immediately entertaining that you would share it with somebody, and then they would watch it, and then they would share it with somebody else, and then they would watch it. It just kind of creates this huge ecosystem of shares. And then I think another reason why TikTok got so popular right away as well is because when you shared it and somebody viewed it, they viewed it on TikTok, right? They were able to kind of just see it. They're in TikTok, and now they just kind of flooded into the TikTok algorithm, and they're just kind of feeding TikTok all this data. So genius strategy. I mean, I have nothing against TikTok or anything. I just think I'm just saying that shares are so important. So if you like somebody's music, share it. And you do this with your favorite artists. I mean, let's just be honest, right? So like, I mean, if your favorite artist came out with a new song right now, you would share it for them, and you don't even know them. Well, you likely don't know them. Not sure, obviously. Odds are you don't know your favorite artist. But you are so maybe sold, or genuinely a fan of their music, that you just feel the need to share it with people because you think other people are going to enjoy it. So the same way you react to your favorite artist's new music, that, if it's a friend of yours, or more specifically, if it's literally just somebody that you know that makes genuine good music, an independent artist, or again, going back to that small business perspective, if it's a friend that you know that owns a small business, if they have a product and you genuinely like it and you share it with somebody, that could go a long way. It could literally mean that now 40 more people are exposed to the product because they viewed it on your Instagram story, and one of them says, hey, this is interesting, and I'm going to click follow. Boom, that person clicks follow. Now Instagram says, oh, this person shared it, so people like this will likely share it. So let me expose this account to those kind of people. And this person ended up following, so people like this are more likely to follow this page. Let me expose this account to this kind of people. So the more there's that engagement, obviously it works. I feel like a lot of what I'm saying is clearly obvious, but these are kind of like the free methods of support for an artist. And so then, so just doing that on any type of different social media account is a way that you can support. So if you literally go to callmemanny.com/support, you'll see all the different ways that you can support a Facebook, support an artist on Facebook, whether it's liking their most recent post, sharing their most recent post, just leaving a comment on their most recent post, engaging in some sort of way, whether it's YouTube, the same thing, like, comments, shares. So it's all individually broken out, which ends up equating to about 95 things. So then the last things are of course, we talked about the actual stream, listening to the music, and then the merch sales. So hopefully your favorite artist has merch available. I do have merch available. You can go to shop.callmemanny.com and you'll be able to see my merch lines. I have 3 different product lines that I'm currently operating on right now, which is my Manniac, which currently is my best-selling brand, the classic M logo, which is new. That's the M that you're now seeing on pretty much all of my websites. Well, all my sites and social media. And then my On The Way Home logo, which is the compass, that has been my brand since I started my independent label in 2015. And so if you obviously are interested in any of those merch, I encourage you all to go to shop.callmemanny.com, take a look at that. And then I also have limited edition merch lines for like my music releases or just random merch ideas that I thought about that I put together. And so you can see those merch releases as well. And then obviously the final way you can support an artist is through the live performances. So obviously the live performance is a big deal. You're more likely to buy a ticket when there's an actual event. But we talked about how it's kind of hard for an artist to actually plan out an event because it's hard to get a lot of people congregated in a certain area unless an artist has some sort of viral content piece inside of a local area. It's just random. Falling Out of Love and Out My Way, for example. Well, Out My Way is probably not the best example because Out My Way did make waves in a kind of local, regional, Bronx, New York City kind of area. But Falling Out of Love is a perfect example of a song that literally just kind of blew up everywhere. There's no individual place that people are listening to Falling Out of Love. So there is an aspect of, okay, if I have a lot of listeners in a lot of cities, then I can go travel to all of these cities and probably pull in some performance revenue. That may be true, but it's difficult for me to tell where all these individual listeners that are likely to visit me at a live performance are, simply based on the streaming data. The best data I can get is actual mailing list subscribers. So hopefully somebody streams my music, finds my Instagram or any of my social media content, decides to subscribe to my mailing list. Now I'm able to identify, hey, I have 100 mailing list subscribers specifically in Lynn, Massachusetts, which is where I'm from. I can visit my city and do a performance and likely pull in enough people to be able to get a return on my investment. Okay. Now, there's a final way that I created as kind of like a solution to the problem of having listeners all over the place. And that is in the form of a kind of like a fan club membership. And so if you actually visit shop.callmemanny.com, you'd be able to see this kind of membership. It's called a Manniac membership, and there's a platinum and gold option. The gold option gives you 1 ticket to a future performance, regardless of when that performance is. But the ticket is actually unique. The ticket will contain a QR code that actually has a unique unlisted video from me to you, thanking you for purchasing the ticket in advance. And so the idea would be that the ticket actually holds intrinsic value that you wouldn't even want to trade it in for an actual performance. It's more like a validation piece that shows that you were supporting me from early on in my career. Imagine owning one of those tickets for Drake, where Drake is who he is now, and being able to either redeem that ticket for a backstage access to his most recent concert, which I'm sure cost a fortune, or if, imagine Beyonce tickets, for example, or being able to just have this value that shows that, hey, yeah, you were an official, like, first-time member of the Beehive, you know? And so just kind of having that piece, or the value of that piece, that you could even resell. So that's one interesting thing. So there's that ticket that I sell kind of in advance for a future performance, as well as give you a coupon code for a free merch item. That's the gold package. And then the platinum package gives you 4 tickets, same concept. All 4 of them would contain that unique QR code, have the date on it. So it'll be this unique piece of, ticketing art that has intrinsic value, plus 4 items of merch. On top of that, you get 10% discount off of my merch going forward if you get the gold package, 30% discount off of my merch going forward if you get the platinum package. So I haven't really talked too much about this with people, if I'm being honest. I've talked about it to some of like my closest friends and some of my family along the way to kind of get some of their ideas. And I recently just passed 10 individuals to actually do this. And so I felt like now was kind of like more of a time to say like, hey, you know, like there's actually a way that's the best way to support me right now. Give me 1 second. Okay, I apologize for that. My camera timed out on me, but that's fine. So I caught it right away. So just put a quick please stand by on YouTube. Those that are listening, I apologize for even bringing it up. But regardless, it gives you a moment or gives you an opportunity to be able to support me early on in my career. And hopefully that leads to something in the future where, you know, if I do end up doing a performance in your area, you don't even have to worry about the ticket sale because you already have the ticket that you can redeem for that live performance event. So obviously not many people have that. That's just kind of this random solution that I created. I created that actually before the pandemic, but it's actually more, I guess, useful for the pandemic. You can also just buy the ticket itself, but obviously getting it with a Manniac membership will give you the, you know, the 10%, the 30%, as well as the free product or free 4 lines of product as well. So cool. So anyway, so that kind of just goes down to it. Obviously, you know, when it comes down to your friend's small business or your friend who's an independent artist, the best way to support is to find a way to, you know, offer your monetized support. And if you cannot, if it's too much, or if you don't have if you're not in a position to support in that way, to be able to support in more, I guess, in ways that are great for the algorithms in a social media aspect, so that their content and their business can start to grow because of the way that the algorithms are designed along the way. So cool. Hey, yeah, that was just a quick breakdown, something that I wanted to put together, not only as an episode for this podcast, but as something that I would be able to essentially show people whenever they ask how can they support, to be able to just give them a quick breakdown of the different ways that they can support what I'm trying to accomplish, what I'm working on, my goals, and hopefully put myself in a position where I can produce more music for them, increase my distribution, obviously put myself in a position where I'll be able to do more live performances, and as well as impact more lives through my music. So thank you so much for listening to the podcast. If you're here on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Overcast, Anchor, or any other podcast platform. And thank you so much if you're on YouTube watching this stream. This, again, was episode 7. I did talk about how many podcasts stop at episode 7. I obviously don't plan to. I'm actually currently developing some ideas for what would be season 2 of On The Way Home Radio, which is actually to start figuring out a way to broadcast the actual this actual podcast live on YouTube. So there's a part of me that wants to be able to figure out how to just broadcast this live, engage with a live community while I'm recording it, and be able to produce it in that way, because there's not really much I do after this. I just recorded. I recorded from the camera. I will put it together on Premiere Pro and then just upload it into YouTube. But I'm not doing any special editing or anything along those lines, because I like, if you go back and listen to episode 1, I just wanted this to be as raw and uncut as possible for my Manniacs, my real fans. So again, I appreciate you all for listening or for watching. It really means the world to me that you listen. Share this video with one friend, and as always, be great. On the Way Home Radio.